Do you get low back pain when you do yoga, especially when you do back bends? Well, that doesn't have to happen, and there's ways that you can actually do back bends that are going to strengthen and stabilize and support your low back rather than create pain and strain. And we're going to look at some of those ways here in this class. I'm Bree Johnson of Heart Bones Yoga, and we're here to give you tools to build sustainable yoga practices so that your body can feel good for years to come. So let's get started. What we're going to look at are Cobra pose, locust, the back bends that we do on our belly, because I know for a lot of people that's where we get the most aches and pains. And when you know the principles in these poses, you can take those same principles and apply them into other back bends, some of the larger range of motion back bends. Now there's two main things that we want to think about before we get into the poses. What the pelvis is doing and what our spine is doing. And we start with the pelvis because the pelvis and the spine are connected, but when we can have the pelvis in a more neutral position, that's going to invite your spine, specifically around your low back, to have the opportunity to move better and more freely, so it's not getting compressed. For a lot of us, the pain that we might feel is because there's compression happening in the lower back. So this is what I like to call a move and learn class. So I invite you to either watch this class with me and observe and then do it, or get right down onto your floor and do it with me. When we do something like a Cobra pose or locust pose, it requires a lifting up of the spine, and that lifting up of the spine and that back bend feel, or Sphinx pose here, and that back bend feel can start to put some compression here in the low back. And that's really partly due to a lot of factors, but let's focus on the first factor, which is our pelvis. So I'll talk us through about how to get that pelvis into a more neutral position. You can start in Sphinx pose here, or you can also do it with your head on the ground like so. Whatever feels good, and then start to bring your attention into the bones of your pelvis. And you're going to start to feel the pubic bone, the pubic symphysis, right at the front of the pelvis. And that's going to be your anchor point. And from there, you want to start to feel, now bring your attention in from the pubic symphysis around to the back of your pelvis and down towards your tailbone. And let's use our tailbone as our guide as to knowing what our pelvis is doing and what angle that it's in. So now I'm going to start to feel, and I invite you to do this with me, start to point your tailbone towards your heels. And notice what happens to your pubic symphysis when your tailbone points towards your heels, and probably lifts off the ground a little bit. Now relax all of that. And then again, start to feel like your tailbone is pointing towards your heels. And then relax. Good. Now, you want to start to feel from here that you have a little bit of connection down through the pubic symphysis. You're not pushing the front of your pelvis down, but you're gently anchoring it, connecting it to the floor. And then at the same time, again, slide your tailbone towards your heels. Not so much that you're really flattening the lower back, but just enough that there's an invitation, there's a direction of a movement in that direction of your tailbone towards the heels, while maintaining the pubic symphysis on the floor. So play with that awareness first, just get a sense of how that feels in your body. And then let's relax that, wiggle out your legs. Okay, so then from here, that's what we're going to aim for. So I'd like to do a little before and after. So if it feels okay for your lower back, let's come up into Sphinx or come up into Cobra. And I'm going to invite you to do kind of more of a dramatic Cobra. Don't worry about what your pelvis is doing, and just really try to get as much of that back bend curve as you can. Okay. Now, you might have felt fine. That might have felt like a lovely stretch, or you might have felt some crunching in your lower back. So let's do that. So that was our before. Now our after is going to go back into that work that we were doing in the pelvis. So it's very important to start first, anchoring your pubic symphysis, feeling your tailbone slide towards your heels a bit so that we're maintaining a sense of length through the lower back. Now hands underneath your shoulders. Continue to press and keep that anchor feeling through your pelvis. And you're going to come up. And you can come up higher but only as high as you can maintain that work and that feeling of spaciousness through your lower back, that feeling of lengthening your tailbone without doing it too much, right? There's just enough of a little bit of a length, and anchoring the pubic symphysis down. Okay, release out of that. Did that feel different? Who knows, right? So we're all going to be different in our bodies, but that's just one layer. We're going to add another layer to this now. So the next layer is anchoring pubic symphysis, tailbone moving down. The next layer is going to be thinking about what your legs are doing. So from here, press the top of your feet gently to the floor. Feel like your legs are gently active. Your glutes will be gently active. You're not squeezing them. They'll naturally just kind of kick on when we do this. So feel like your legs are reaching out behind you. Gently, again, anchoring the tops of the feet to the floor, anchoring the pubic symphysis, keeping the length through the low back, and let's try that again. Come up. Good. What does it feel like when we have more activation through the lower half of our body? And then lower and release. Pause, shake that out. Now the next layer of this will be what our spine is doing. It's important to think about back bends less as a bend, but I like to think of them as a back or a spine elongation, a spine lengthening. So spinal extension, reaching, feeling like you're creating length rather than the bend. And the bend comes from the action of trying to lengthen. So I'll talk us through that again. So let's set our lower half up, tops of your feet gently rooted to the floor. Pubic symphysis anchored, tailbone lengthening gently towards your heels. Again, it's not a crazy long lengthening, it's a gentle elongation. Now before you come up, hands underneath your shoulders, start to feel like your spine is lengthening away and out of your pelvis. This will be more of a feeling rather than an actual action. So feel like as you inhale, lengthen, and keep feeling like your spine is getting longer, pulling away from the legs. And maybe you find, oh wait, I can't quite come up as high. And that's perfect, because it doesn't matter how high a cobra should be. We want to maintain this work of beautiful feeling of lengthening in your lumbar spine, in your lower back, lengthening through the vertebrae, and then exhale, release. Give yourself a little wiggle. So again, you might have noticed, wait a second, this might have gotten harder. Your backside might have had to work a little bit more than the first option where we just kind of came up, pushed and pressed and held like that, compared to everything active, everything working. Oh yeah, it's a completely different pose, but my friends, that's the whole point. When we're inviting work and that sense of lengthening of your spine, anchoring strength through the legs and pelvis, then that's requiring the muscles along your spine, the muscles all along your backside to kick on and hold you better. So again, that's that sense of stability and strength in a back bend. So yoga teachers, if you're watching this and needing ideas for your classes, work with that in your body first. How does it feel to really feel that sense of anchoring my pelvis down? How does it feel to get that sense of lengthening in your low back? Not so much that you end up tucking and flattening the low back, but lengthening the tailbone a little. How does it feel when I press my feet down and then up? And then remind yourself and your students that in the end, it really, like I said, there's no goal here. There doesn't matter how big and open you bring your Cobra pose or Sphinx pose or any of these back bends. It's all about getting that lengthening so that we're creating, again, stability and strength for our lower back, as well as some movement and mobility. So I hope that helps. Leave any questions that you have in the comments, and feel free to explore all of the other fabulous tutorials that we have here.